Well, I blew up my motherboard. Well, blew up might be a slight exaggeration. What I've got going on is I had this server, this big guy right here. I built it about, I don't know, 2-3 years ago and used it for what I needed it for. And I don't really need it for what I had originally built it for. So I thought, all right, I'm going to pull the motherboard out of that thing, you know, CPU, RAM, all that good stuff, and I'm going to throw it in another case. So I grabbed this guy, threw everything in there, gave it a new SSD and all sorts of good stuff. Get it all installed, get everything hooked up, plug it in, and black screen, nothing going on. Okay, that's kind of weird. Let's have a look at the motherboard. Well, I look at the motherboard and this is what I see. It says the CPU's good, then it goes to the DRAM and it just stops right there. Give it a few minutes, it'll boot loop back around. And thought, okay, I'm not real sure what's going on here. This machine was pretty much up and running for 2 years straight with no problems, with the same RAM and everything else. So off to the Googles I go, and I find a couple different Reddit posts or different things like that saying, well, if you, this is a common problem with the gigabit Aorus X470 ultra gaming motherboard, that all of a sudden the BIOS will become corrupt and you won't be able to get past the DRAM step of the boot up. And that's what I had going on. They had a couple different solutions you could try. You know, hold the power button and reset button down for 10 seconds and it'll force it into its backup BIOS, and then you can reset everything or reflash the original the main BIOS and get it working again. Tried that, didn't work. And they said turn the power supply off, hold the power button down, turn the power supply back on, let the power button go. As soon as it starts booting up, kill the power supply again, then start it up normal. Yeah, that didn't do anything for me. You know, go ahead, hold the power button down for, 10 seconds, let it reboot on its own. It should kick you into the backup BIOS. Yep, that didn't work. Turn it on and just let it run and let it boot loop until it finally realizes, hey, something screwed up here. Well, it didn't work either. So after, I don't know, a night's worth of going back and forth with this thing, I did what every, ex-military personnel would do. I started cussing. I started throwing stuff around, having a freaking breakdown just because, that's what knuckleheads like I do, and said the hell with it. So I went out to Amazon and I bought this guy right here, B450 board. Yeah, I know there's B550 and X550 out there and everything, but the CPU in this machine is a R7 2700. It's a couple years old. I don't have any intentions of upgrading my system until, well, the prices of GPUs come down. And I don't see that happening anytime soon. So hell with it. I'm going to spend $120 and put this motherboard in this system and see if we can't get it up and running. Then I thought, well, this is a good opportunity to kind of go through the steps to assemble a build-at-home computer, a hobby computer, whatever you want to call it, and then maybe install Windows 11 or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this whole machine apart all the way back down to nothing. And then we're going to start with this new motherboard, and we're going to go through the steps of installing the CPU, the RAM, the cooler, just everything involved with putting it together and getting the machine to start up in post for the first time. So let's get to that. Down goes the beer. right, now that we've got everything taken apart, let's go ahead and take the motherboard out of the box. When you open it up, you're going to find the motherboard in a static bag. And what do we have here? Looks like a couple SATA cables. Pull this guy out. And looks like we got a couple RGB cables. Not going to use those. Zip ties, always useful. This looks like it's a thermal pad for something, probably the M2 drive CD, not going to use it. A couple standoffs for the M.2 drive, and right here is probably the most important thing in the whole box, minus the motherboard. It's the instruction manual, in which we're actually going to use it, believe it or not. It does have some useful information in it. So let's go ahead, close this guy back up, and pull the motherboard out of the bag. And we're going to set this guy right there. Now, because I had such difficulty with the last motherboard, the Gigabit, I'm actually going to put the processor in, one stick of RAM, and try to boot it up. Make sure it goes through the boot process. So let's see here. I'm missing my glasses. That's probably why I can't see shit right now. All right. So if you look at the CPU socket, you will see in one corner there should be a little triangle, and it's right up here in the corner. And you'll notice that on the CPU, right there it is, little triangle. So you just take and kind of give it a little jiggle and make sure it's in the holes, and close the lever, and it is now seated in the socket. With that done, let's go ahead and go back to the manual. And the reason I'm going back to it is because I want to put one DIMM in. And if you look at the manual, it'll tell you which socket to use if you're using one stick of RAM, 2 sticks of RAM, or 4 sticks of RAM. We're only putting one in, so it says to use DIMM A2. So if we look at the board, it actually has it printed right up here. It says which one's which here, and we need to put one stick into DIMM 2, which is this guy right here. Make sure you have your little notch lined up with the tab. Slide it into the 2 slots and push it down until you hear it click. You'll see that guy right there clicked up. And the next thing I want to do is I actually want to boot this guy to see if it will actually boot up. And the way we're going to do that is I'm going to hook up the power supply, looking through the manual here for some info. And the way we're going to know if it actually posted is because the manual says right here, up here in this corner, we'll have these little LEDs, and it should cycle through them all and not have any red lights or weird codes going on. Those little LEDs are right there. So we'll take the power supply, and I'll bring him over here, and we want to connect our 24 pin connector for the motherboard. That's motherboard power right there. Just clicked in. And then we want to take our, what is this guy's 8-pin connector, but it's split into 2 4s. You just push them together like that, and you're good to go. Slide it in these guys up here, and that's actually power for your CPU. So let's make sure we got that, both of them seated. They're both seated. All right, so there's no buttons connected to the system right now, to the motherboard. So the way we're going to turn it on is we're going to again go back to our manual. I'm going to keep pushing that home because a lot of people just skip it and they think, hey, I watched a video or two, I know what I'm doing. And then they go and they put two sticks of RAM in just one slot. You know, you've got two lanes or whatever they're called, and they'll put both of them right next to each other, and guess what? That's not the right way. So just check the manual out. There's a lot of information in here. But right here it says the 3rd and 4th pin on the inside of the board, which is these pins right here. You can see it's got a circle around it, but that's for the power button. So if you just take a piece of metal, a screwdriver or something, you can jump it, and then once we jump it, we'll go ahead and see if it boots, make sure our power supply is on, and if it does, we'll just go ahead and turn our power supply on and go ahead and continue putting the system together. So right here, pin 3 and 4, jumped them. Okay, lights came on. It's cycling through them, so it's checking everything out. Give it a little second because it might need some setup. There, it had another little flash. And it is saying that the VGA light is on. Well, we don't have anything hooked up to it right now, a monitor or graphics card or anything like that. This board does have onboard, it doesn't have onboard graphics. It has connections for an HDMI cable, but you need a CPU that has graphics built in. This one doesn't, so that's all it's saying is, hey, everything post it. We don't have video hooked up to it, so I'm happy with that. I'm satisfied with that. So we're just going to shut it off. I'm going to unhook the cords, and we're going to continue with the build. All right, so next up, I'm going to go ahead and install the other 3 sticks of RAM. All right, RAM's installed. The next thing I'm going to want to do is put the thermal paste on it and the cooler. Let me go get some thermal paste real quick. When you buy a CPU like this, the majority of Ryzen CPUs come with a cooler. And it's going to be something like this guy right here. And this is actually a pretty nice cooler. It's got a piece of or what is it, bronze, brass, whatever on the bottom, which will really conduct the heat into the aluminum, which the fans will blow through and it'll disperse the heat. But when you get these, they will already have thermal paste applied to them, so you won't have to do this step where I'm putting it on there. But the way, well, first let's look at this. You see these 2 tabs right here? Those are for a different type of cooler that has 2 little tabs that click onto it and flip up. I'll throw a picture up on the screen for that. We aren't going to use those, so what I need to do with that screw back is we're going to go ahead and take those little plastic tabs off. And we'll take them off and set them to the side. And you'll notice there's little screws, holes there. If you lift the board up, it's got this backing plate on it. That's what we're actually going to screw to. So we need to go ahead and keep that guy on there. If you're using this type of cooler, you would just orient it the way you want. You put it on there and you screw the screws down until they quit screwing down. They'll stop when they need to, and you'll be good to go. But I'm not using that. I'm using this big, bad mother trucker right here. It's just a great big be quiet, overindulgent, look at me, I'm a man type of cooler, I guess. I don't know. And it actually has a couple extra parts. When you buy something like this, it'll come with a bag of parts like this and an instruction manual showing you which brackets to use for which processor you have. Now, I already put this on the gigabit board, so I already know what I need. So it comes with these little spacers here. Get them all on there, and then we've got these little brackets right here. And it told me that, I don't know if you can see it or not, AM4, we use this back screw hole for, and I believe they went on the inside. I had to stop there and double check the manual just to make sure I was putting it on right, and I was. But imagine that, a manual came in handy again. Who would have ever thought that? Okay, with our brackets on, I'm going to go ahead and put a little thermal paste on here. Now, there's all sorts of different theories about how you should do it. You should put a dot in the middle of the size of a P. You should put an X on it. You should do 3 lines. You should put dots on each corner and 1 in the middle. You do you. I'm going to put an X on it just because that's what I want to do. And you know why I can do that? Because this is my computer. And I'll do it the way I want to do it. So, with that on there, big old glob of thermal paste, we're going to put our cooler on. Now, you want to make sure you get your fans oriented right. Normally, the open face is the intake, and it blows out. So we want it to go towards the back of our case. So we're going to face it like this. And you just set the guy down on there. So next thing up is to screw this guy down. Got a couple little caps to put on the top here just to make everything match, because I know you're going to want to show this male compensation cooler off to someone. You're just going to want them to see how massive and impressive it is. So next we want to go ahead and hook our fan header up, and I'm just going to slide him underneath the radiators here, and up here at the top there are a pair of fan headers. Sometimes one of them can be used for a pump if that's what you want to use it for, but you can really just use both of them as fan headers. And I'm going to plug this guy in. So now we need to put this other fan in that goes in the middle. Make sure you orient it right. This is the intake. This is the exhaust. So we want to put it in like this. I'm going to put it with the wires here because I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to route it underneath the radiators just to clean the wiring up, just to make life a little easier on me with that. So let's slide these wires through, grab a hold of them, and we'll start sliding the fan in. And the way this fan connects, well, here, let's pull it out. It's got this little clip right here that goes into each one of the holes, and then it clips onto the fins of the radiator. So let's go ahead, put that guy back through. Same thing on the other side. This side will be a little more difficult just because it's already under a little bit of pressure, but it will go. There we go. And then we want to plug this fan in also. All right, so we're looking pretty good right now. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put in the SSD drives. Now, I took two of them out of the X470, but I'm only going to use one of them in this system. This is a 1 terabyte Western Digital, and the reason I'm only going to use one of them is because this is something, again, you need to check your manual about, is these motherboards are pretty affordable, and the way they do that is sometimes when you use one of their features, it takes away from one of the other features. Now on this one, if I use this slot down here for the NVMe drive, which is I'm going to do, it actually takes my graphics card and it takes it from a PCIe 16 lane and it turns it into an 8, gives 4 of the 16 to this guy and 4 of the 16 to this guy. Well, I'm going to use this guy for a video capture card. So I kind of already knew that. I had it planned out a little bit, and this one might be used for a 10 gig card or something like that. But if I took and put both of them in, if I put another one up here, what it does is it takes away 2 of my SATA lanes, which I don't want to do that because I've got a little RAID set up in the machine, but that's a little beyond what we're talking about right now. So let's go ahead and we'll pop this cover off. Not with that screwdriver, we won't. Go ahead and take that peel off real quick, just because. So let's grab our little baggie here. Where did I put it at? Here we go. It's got a pair of standoffs in it and the little bitty pain in the ass screws. This guy's already got a standoff on it, so I shouldn't need to put another one in. Oh, I'm going to. All you do is you take your standoff, and this is the hole that I wanted. If your card's a different size, you put it in a different one of the screw holes there. We're just going to screw it down. Now I'm just going to do it finger tight. That'll be good enough. Take this guy. It has a notch in it right there. It corresponds to a little tab right there. You push it in, and it's going to be sitting up like that. And what you need to do is push it down like that and hold it and try to put your screw in. But these little screws are a pain in the tuchus. Get him on there, screw him down, and hey, there's our hard drive in. Now, our heatsink for that guy has a little tape on it here. Well, the thermal pad's coming up. That's not good. So we want to just take the cover off. Now, I'm not going to tighten that one all the way down right away. We're going to put both of them in, get a little bit of torque on them, and then we'll tighten them down. That way they go down evenly and nothing silly happens. So, all right. Okay, we are good to go. Looks like we've done everything to the motherboard outside of the box that we can do. So we're going to set this guy to the side, and I'm going to grab the case. Actually, lied to you. Before we do that, we're going to mount the motherboard to the tray that will go into the case. You can take your motherboard, line it up with that middle screw right there. It's got a little notch it just dropped into, and you'll be able to see where you need to put standoffs. So I'm going to go ahead and screw the standoffs, or screw the motherboard onto the tray, and then we'll get onto that case. Once you get your case out, you're going to end up having a lot of the wires, like your fan wires and stuff like that, in the way. So let's just go ahead and try to drape them over the side the best we can to get them out of our way. And first up, we're going to go ahead and install the power supply. So we'll take it, slide our wires through the back, and slide our power supply in. And we'll set the fan up pointing towards the ground, or pointing towards the bottom of the case. I'm just going to pull these cables out just to try to give me a little bit of room. Once we have it in there, we're just going to take our thumb screws and tighten it down. Once the power supply is in, we're going to go ahead and take our motherboard and install it. Now, if you had to put an I/O shield in right here, you'd want to do that now before you get the motherboard in. I don't have to worry about it because the I/O shield is connected to the motherboard. So I just need to get this guy down in here and slide it into place. Once it's slid into place, we just got to take another couple thumb screws and screw it into the case. Now that we have the motherboard in the case, we're going to start by hooking up the exhaust fan and the two front intake fans to these headers right here. We'll follow that up with hooking up the front USB 3 header right there. Then the audio header is down here. Now that all the peripherals are hooked up, the last thing we have is the power switch, the reset button, the LEDs for the front of the case, and that header is in the lower right corner right here. If you've got super good eyes, it tells you what each one of these pins are down here. I obviously don't have super good eyes, so I have to rely on the manual for that. And this is the type of pictures you'll get in the manual. It's pretty simple to follow. All of the headers, all of the pins actually have their name on them, so you just kind of have to match them up and plug them in, and you'll be good to go. And now that we have all the peripherals hooked up, we can go ahead and hook up power to the motherboard and then power to the CPU right there. Once that's done, all we have left is to hook the graphics card up, and of course we're going to put it in the top slot right there. All right, with everything hooked up, ready to go, let's hit that power button and see if we get a post. Looks like we're getting a little something here. Yep, there we go. All right, so the system has posted. We can get into the BIOS now and adjust anything we want. With that, that's the end of this video. I think I'm going to go ahead and download Windows 11, install that on this guy right here. So, you know, stick around. Maybe in a week or so, we'll have another video showing you how to do that and seeing if it's worth it or not. And if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and karate chop the like button and roundhouse kick the subscribe button, and we will catch you later.